Not Too Late at 58, the podcast for those of a certain age who say, yes, why not? Hello and welcome to this podcast series called Not Too Late at 58. I'm Annie Weir and I turned a lifetime dream into a reality when I was 58 by writing and publishing my first novel. So I am living proof that it is not too late at 58. Hence the name and hence my new passion to help other people of a certain age to achieve their ambitions. You don't actually need to be 58, of course, or want to write a novel. And if you'd like to know more about me and Not Too Late at 58, just hop back to the first episode in the series. So far in the series, we've looked at things that weren't so great in the past and found ways to learn from them and move on. We also looked at the things that went well in the past and thought about how to use them to make future ventures successful and also more enjoyable. And the next thing to do is to establish where we are now. If you key in a destination on your sat-nav, the first thing it will do is establish where you are, and only then can it give you directions and guide you to where you want to be. There's a download on my website called How Satisfied Are You Now, which you can go and get. And if you're listening on Podbean, the link is there too, so you can download it and work through it now or later. And it relates well to this episode. So to start with, use the download or simply draw a line across a piece of paper and mark on it a scale 1 through to 10, where 1 is not satisfied at all and 10 is blissfully satisfied and wanting for nothing. So where do you place yourself right now at this moment of your life? So mark it on the line. And this step is really important. Write down 3 reasons why you've given yourself that score. The next thing to do is to indicate, and maybe in a different colour along the line there as well, what score would you like to be at? And again, a very important step, write down 3 ways in which you could increase your score on the scale to where you want to be. 3 things that you could actually do. There's a coaching model called GROW, the GROW model, and the R in GROW stands for R, the reality check, and that's really what we're doing now. If you do a clerical job, for example, and you sit down all day, drive to and from work, look after an elderly relation and small children in the evenings and at weekends, and you haven't done any exercise for years, your goal or your dream of completing the next London Marathon doesn't sound very realistic. Part of the reality check is to consider not only your own ability and motivation, but also to consider those around you and how you can make it work within your existing responsibilities and constraints. And some people feel that they should, in inverted commas, be achieving more, and who or what makes them feel like that needs to be explored at this stage too. So as well as the I'm getting too old for all this change thoughts, there are often the I'm not capable of doing whatever it is thoughts, or the people will think I'm stupid thoughts, or in the case of my writing, the people probably won't like what I write anyway thoughts. So where do these doubts come from? We need to tackle them objectively. If you do want to complete the London Marathon while there's still time, and we all know it's not too late at 58, it may be that you aren't capable right now, and perhaps your plan needs to involve a longer-term fitness and running programme so you're ready to enter next year. If you're dreaming of that quaint little tea shop by the sea and you've worked in an office all your working life, perhaps you could get a part-time job in a cafe locally, or volunteer, or gain some experience and qualifications, because most dreams come with some mundane prerequisites. And Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. And so sometimes you need to identify what you need to do to get to that position where you do think you can. It's not too late. In the timeline exercise that we did in earlier episodes, I asked you to think about past disappointments or failures to pinpoint what went wrong and how you could avoid them in the future. I asked you to think about what had made you feel happy and fulfilled in the past, and from there to identify what strengths and passions you brought into play to achieve those successes. That is a starting point for thinking about some other aspects of ourselves to help make our dreams more achievable and really to turn them from dreams into plans. So try this exercise and get it all down on paper or computer, of course. No one else has to see it, and you can destroy it later if you want to. So try to write a description about yourself. Describe yourself fully. You might want to write it in prose about how you see yourself and who and what you think you are. You might prefer to write a list of bullet points. If you've got a pen and paper in your hand, you might prefer to do drawings depicting your thoughts about yourself, or you might choose to do a mind map. And hopefully there are lots of good things in your description of how you see yourself. You know, I try to see the good things about myself, but I always seem to have to qualify them. You know, I might say, oh yeah, my hair's one of my best features, but you know, I need a haircut because it's a mess right now. I can't just say something nice about myself and leave it there, but this is what we've got to learn to do. And also, to a certain extent, to think about where these thoughts and reactions come from. So to build on that exercise, try to list 3 things your parents said about you. List 3 things school teachers said about you, and list 3 things friends or colleagues have said about you. When I do this exercise, the voices I hear go a long, long way back. With the school one, I can remember a chemistry teacher telling me I was a natural and I could have been, you know, I could have a good career as a scientist. Well, I moved schools soon after that and never got told that again. But somewhere in my mind, I still believe I could have done that. I could have been a scientist. And an English teacher in a different school, even earlier when I was about 9, poured a scorn on my description of distant snow-covered hills, which almost looked blue. And because she was so scornful about it and told me that the distant hills couldn't possibly be blue, it stifled my creative writing for years. And when friends and colleagues show faith in me, I can't think why they have such a high opinion. So occasions like those negative ones can have an impact long after the words are spoken. They can lead us to holding what's called self-limiting beliefs. I have a self-limiting belief in my work. That is that I am hopeless at networking. And my husband has asked me many times where the main part of my work comes from. And when I say word of mouth or referrals from people I've worked with before, or an inquiry that came up after an event, I realised that actually I'm not that hopeless at networking. It's just a different sort of networking to swishing around in a crowded room full of strangers who all want to talk about themselves. I just can't bear those sorts of occasions. So anyway, enough about me. Can you identify any self-limiting beliefs that hold you back? And which are the most limiting? See if you can do 3. Stick with the 3s. And have any of these self-limiting beliefs held you back in anything that you've really wanted to do? So like the timeline, this is not designed to make you feel sad or inadequate. It's to make you see what is holding you back, probably subconsciously. And now that you've brought them out into the daylight, you can see the self-limiting beliefs for what they are and consciously reject them when they pop into your head. Imagine if my English teacher way back when I was 9 had said, wow, what innovative imagery. Keep writing. I may have published Judith Wants to Be Your Friend many years before I was 58, along with other novels that I have started over the years. That one throwaway line a long time ago, and I remember it like it was this morning. Now, I've done several creative writing courses since, some of them as part of a group. I've done online courses, and I have consistently got good positive feedback along with good developmental constructive feedback as well. And so these days I prefer to listen to those words in my head instead of that horrible school teacher. Okay, now take that pen and paper again, and this time write down what you'd like to hear other people say about you. Imagine that you're eavesdropping a conversation between two people that you admire, and they're talking about you. What can you hear them saying? Again, try and get 3 really good things that you can hear them saying about you. So that feels better, doesn't it? And you can make it happen starting right now. It's not too late to do what you want to do or be what you want to be. Another thing that I was going to suggest is that you think about doing a SWOT chart. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that might hinder you. It's a tool that's used a lot in business, but it would be good to do it in relation to the change that you want to make in your life. There's a template on my website that you can download and use, but you don't really need one. Just get a piece of paper, divide it into 4 sections, and brainstorm the S, W, O, and T. And then having done that, think about how you can put your strengths to good use to make the most of the opportunities that you identified. Think about how you can use your strengths to overcome the possible threats. Look into what you can do to reduce the weaknesses, perhaps by doing further training or practice, or buying in somebody's expertise to help you. And look at your weaknesses again. Are they really weaknesses? So if you consider yourself to be stubborn, would it be such a great shift to turn it into being persistent? Not kind of entrenched in a principle, but determined to find a way around a difference of opinion. And look again at your threats. If you're planning to start a business, you might have other competition as a threat, but you could try to look at that positively and see if there's ways that you can collaborate with people. So knowing your strengths is one thing, being aware of them and using them to your best advantage in your new venture is something else. And the last thing to do for this podcast episode is to compile a massive strength list. Yeah, really. And, do it now as soon as this finishes. Go back to the strengths from the SWOT analysis. Go back to the complimentary things you imagine people saying about you. Go back to the timeline of good things and compile all the good and the great things about yourself. And this is no time to be coy. You don't need to show it to anyone. You just need to reinforce it all in your own mind to help you to take your dream forward. Right, I think that's enough for this episode. I'll get down off my soapbox now. And I hope you really, really enjoy seeing the reality of your strengths. And in the next episode, we're going to look at ways of exploring what options are open to you to move towards achieving your dream. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.